Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It is good to be together. If you have the opportunity, if there's someone somewhat near you, if you want to wave and wish them a Shabbat Shalom, it's a wonderful way for us to build our community. We turn for our opening songs to page 10. I invite you to join with me in Maya Hayom. Maya Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Maya Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Maya Hayom. Shabbat Shalom. Maya Hayom. Shabbat Shalom. We look to the other side of the page towards the bottom as we come across the words for Ki Eshmera Shabbat. Ki Eshmera Shabbat El Yishmereni. Ki Eshmera Shabbat El Yishmereni. Oti Leol Meyad Beino Veni. Oti Leol Meyad Beino Veni. We go to page 339. Skip a little. Skip a lot. The bottom of our page. Hava, Hava Nashira, Shir Hallelujah, Shir Hallelujah. Hava, Hava Nashira, Shir Hallelujah, Shir Hallelujah. Hava, Hava Nashira, Shir Hallelujah. Hava, Hava Nashira, Shir Hallelujah. Hava, Hava Nashira, Shir Hallelujah, Shir Hallelujah. Hava, Hava Nashira, Shir Hallelujah, Shir Hallelujah. Hava. We turn back to page 2 for our candle blessing. And Nick, I would like to invite you to come forward and help us with lighting our Shabbat candles tonight.
O God, you are the light by which we see the ones we love. As we kindle these lights, begin a holy time. May we and all Israel find it refreshment of body and spirit, and the sense that you are near to us all at times. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kisheno, mitzvotav mitzvanu, lehalek ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
We praise you, eternal God, sovereign of the universe. You hallow us with mitzvot and command us to kindle the lights of Shabbat. May we be blessed with Shabbat joy. May we be blessed with Shabbat peace. May we be blessed with Shabbat light.
Amen. Shabbat Shalom. We turn now to page 20. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalala 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Ishmeyanu el hamyuchad, Adonai echad, U'shemo echad, L'shem u'tiferet v'li tehila, Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki hi mekor habracha, merosh mikadam nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila, lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Verse 5, Hitorari, hitorari, kiva orech, kumi ori, Uri, Uri, Shir Daberi, Kavod Adonai, Alayich Nigla, Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Last verse. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha uvetzohola, toch emunei am segula, boi chala, boi chala, lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. We turn now to page 26. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dachol Beit Yisrael, Bagala, Bagala, uv'izman kariv, v'yimaru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach, Le'alam ul'al me'amaya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach v'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, V'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal, Shmei dekudasha b'richu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran bi'alma v'imaru. Amen. Please rise if you are able. We turn to the words on page 28. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach, Baruch Adonai hamevorach, Leolam Vaed. On page 30, we recite together in the Hebrew, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma poteach she'arim, uvitvuna mishane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umesader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono, bore yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi layla, umavdil ben yom uvein layla, Adonai tzvaot shemo, el chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. On page 32, everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. You may be seated. We turn to page 36. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, uv'lechtecha v'aderech, uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha, u'kshartam leot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha, u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha, leman tizkaru, ve'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'item kedoshim lelohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, lihiot lachem lelohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, Emet.
On page 39, in a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Page 40. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha neta b'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele. Malechutecha ra'u vanecha, bokei ayam livnei Moshe u'Miriam, ze'elianu ve'amru, ze'elianu ve'ameru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. V'ne'emar ki fada Adonai et Yaakov, ugolo miyad chazach mimenu, Baruch ata Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. On page 43. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch ata Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. On 44. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית העולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית העולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית העולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית העולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית העולם. Invite you to rise in body or spirit for our Amidah as we turn to page 46. Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot v'Imahot, Mevi Gula Livnei V'nehem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaChol Atah Rav L'Hoshia, Morid Hatol, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofech Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishanei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Givurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'nemanat Alechayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechaye HaKol. Atah Kadosh Shimcha Kadosh, Ukedoshim B'chol Yom Yahalelucha Selah, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. You may be seated as we turn to page 55 and pray together. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch Atah Adonai, Mikadesh HaShabbat. Page 57. Ritzei, Ritzei, Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu, Le'amcha Yisrael, Utefilatam, Me'ahava tekabel, Utehi le'ratzon tamid, Utehi le'ratzon tamid, Avodat Yisrael Amecha, Baruch Atah Adonai, She'otecha levadecha, Me'ir anavod, She'otecha levadecha, Me'ir anavod. Page 58. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai our God, and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one whose mercies never end, O compassionate one whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai. Your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch Atah Adonai, Hatov Shimcha Ulecha Na'eh Lehodot. Page 61. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch Atah Adonai, Hamevarech et Amo Yisrael, Bashalom. We take a moment for private meditation.
Yoseh shalom bimromav, Uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, ve'imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Please turn with me to page 244. I invite you, if you're able, to please rise as we prepare for our Torah service. Page 244. Ein kamocha va'Elohim Adonai ve'en kemasecha malchutcha malchut kol olamim umemshatcha bechol dor v'ador Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai himloch le'olam va'ed Adonai oz le'amo yiten Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah Udevar Adonai mirushalayim Baruch Shanatan Torah Torah Baruch Shanatan Torah Torah Le'amo Yisrael B'kdushato Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo Gadlu Ladonai Iti Unromema Shemo Yachdav Lecha Adonai Hagedula V'Hagevura V'Hatiferet V'Hanetzach V'Hahod Ki Chol B'Shamayim U'Va'aretz Ki Chol B'Shamayim U'Va'aretz Lecha Adonai HaMamlecha V'hamid na'aseh lechol rosh Al shlosha devarim Al shlosha devarim Al shlosha devarim Ha'olam omed Al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah Ve'al gemilut chasadim Al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. You may be seated. Before we begin, I just want to say that because Last time someone thought I forgot the blessing. I'm not forgetting the blessing. I'm just letting you know what page we're on. Page 798, if you were able to grab a Plout commentary, which is the larger of your two blue books. This week's Torah portion is Parshat Kedoshim, and I think that it should at least sound familiar to you. How many of you recognize the root of the word Kedoshim? Bunch of you, okay. Tell me what it means. Holy, or holiness, right? Kadosh. In this Torah portion, we hear about a lot of the ways that we are supposed to be holy in the way that God is holy, given some very specific examples of what it means, especially in a community with other people, to act holy as God acts holy. We'll join together for a blessing in your regular Siddur. It's page 250. Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach, Baruch Adonai hamavorach leolam vad, Baruch et Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch et Adonai Noten HaTorah. I realize I didn't tell you why it should sound familiar. Does anyone know? How many times a year do we read this? Everything else is usually once, but this one is twice because we read it again on the afternoon of Yom Kippur, because it is that important to us with what it's sharing as far as its values. V'yedaber, can you hear me okay? V'yedaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, Deber el kol adat b'nei Yisrael v'amarta alehem, Kedoshim tihiyu, ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohechem. Ish imo v'aviv tira'u, ve'et shabtotai tishmoru, ani Adonai Elohechem. Al tifnu el ha'elilim, ve'lohe masecha lo ta'asu lachem, ani Adonai Elohechem. V'chi tizvechuhu zevach shlamim l'Adonai l'rtzonchem, v'tizvechuhu bayom zivchachem, yeyachel mimochorat, v'hanotar ad yom hashlishi, ba'esh yisaref, v'im tochel, that one's I always get wrong, v'im he'achel ye'achol bayom hashlishi pig'ul hu lachem, Yirtza v'ochlav avono, Yisa ki et kodesh Adonai, Chilel v'nichrata hanefesh hahi ba'ameha, uva kutzrechem et ketzir artzechem, lo techale pa'at sadcha liktzor, v'leket ketzircha lo telaket, v'charmcha lo te'olel, uferet karmcha lo telaket, la'oni v'lager ta'azov otam, ani Adonai Elohechem. Lo tignovu v'lo techachashu v'lo tishakru ish ba'amito v'lo tashuvu bishmi l'shaker v'chilalta et shem Elohecha ani Adonai lo ta'asok et re'echa v'lo tigzol lo talin pe'ulat sechir itcha ad boker lo tekalel cheresh v'lifnei iver lo titein mikshol v'yareta me Elohecha ani Adonai. Lo ta'asu avel b'mishpat, lo tisa f'nei dal, v'lo tehadar p'nei gadol b'tzedek, tishpot amitecha. Lo telech rechil ba'amecha, lo ta'amod al dam re'echa, ani Adonai. Lo tisna et achicha bilvavecha, hocheach tochiach et amitecha, v'lo tisa alav chet. Lo takum v'lo titor et b'nei amecha, ve'ahavta l're'echa kamocha, ani Adonai. Does anyone recognize that last 5 words? Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha ani Adonai. You shall love your neighbor, your fellow, as you love yourself. Let's join together for the second blessing on page 250. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata betochenu, Baruch atah Adonai noten HaTorah. Translation of our portion. The Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the whole Israelite community and say to them, 'You shall be holy, for I, the Eternal your God, am holy. You shall each revere your mother and your father, and keep my Shabbatot, my Sabbaths. I, the Eternal, am your God. Do not turn to idols or make molten gods for yourselves. I, the Eternal, am your God. When you sacrifice an offering of well-being to the Eternal, sacrifice it so that it may be accepted on your behalf. It shall be eaten on the day you sacrifice it, or on the day following, but what is left by the third day must be consumed in fire. If it should be eaten on the third day, it is an offensive thing. It will not be acceptable. And one who eats of it shall bear the guilt for having profaned what is sacred to the Eternal. That person shall be cut off from kin. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap all the way to the edges of your field, or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall not pick your vineyard bare, or gather the fallen fruit of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I, the Eternal, am your God. You shall not steal. You shall not deal deceitfully or falsely with one another. You shall not swear falsely by my name, profaning the name of your God. I am the Eternal. You shall not defraud your fellow. You should not commit robbery. The wages of a laborer shall not remain with you until morning. You shall not insult the deaf or place a stumbling block before the blind. You shall fear your God. I am the Eternal. You shall not render an unfair decision. Do not favor the poor or show deference to the rich. Judge your kin fairly. Do not deal basely with members of your people. Do not profit Do not profit by the blood of your fellow Israelite. I am the Eternal. You shall not hate your kinsfolk in your heart. Reprove your kin, but incur no guilt on their account. You shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge against members of your people. Love your fellow Israelite as yourself. I am the Eternal. I hope some of those sound familiar. Certainly, I think we're all pretty familiar with Uva Kutzrechem when it says that you shall not continue to reap all of the things in your field on the outskirts of it, that we should collect it in order to give it to those who are in need. That's one that we turn to a lot when it comes to our desire to help feed people. While we have the Torah in our midst, I'm going to grab something off my other sheet. Maybe not. Maybe I have it. I have it. A lot of papers. While the Torah is in our midst, it is an opportunity for us to focus some prayers towards our community, both here and abroad, as we hope for healing and wholeness of all who are in need of it. We begin with thinking of our Israeli soldiers and civilians who are being held captive. Our God, the one who raised Joseph up from the pit, be a refuge for the oppressed, a refuge in times of trouble. Send complete rescue and full redemption to those held captive. Strengthen their spirit and bring them our prayers that they may be protected from all harm. Implant understanding in the heart of the enemy, that they may return the captives in a wholeness of body and spirit. Grant wisdom to the IDF, that they may secure freedom for the captives without loss of life. Grant strength of spirit and courage of heart to all the sons and daughters of Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar, to release bonds of captivity and allow us all to live in freedom. As we read from Psalm 91, they shall call upon me and I will answer them. I will be with them in distress. I will rescue them and honor them. We think of those in our immediate community as we think especially of Bruce Brenner, Barb Gronefeld, Nanette Baker, Isaac Spicer, David Hernandez, Norman and Carol Leist, Laura McNew, Marcia Schur, Mary Ann Hemmert, Andy Leifheit, Rob Mandel, Ken Rosenzweig, Bert Seidel, Marlene Mayman, Kyle Kreider, Anna Pullman Garcia, Marla Harlan, Kathy Sarmiento, Bobby DeSalvo, Justin Zeisloft, Natalie Katz, Jewel Gregory, James Weston, Isaac Stoller, Kajimira Cairo, Jeremy Watts, Mariah Strickland, Eileen Eady, Kim Howell, Eleanor Must, Catherine Cooper, Sid Gross, Cicely Nathan, and Gary Pacernick. I'd like to invite you to call forward the names of any others that we hold in our hearts at this time as my hand goes around the room. Baruch atah Adonai Rofei HaCholim. Blessed are you, O God, who brings healing to all who are in need of healing. On page 253 in your prayer book, we find the words for Misha Berach. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha La'imotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We turn to the right side of the page on 252, and if you are able to, I invite you to rise as we lift and address the Torah. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Arona v'yam Moshe.
I'm going to have us turn to page 278 for the counting of the Omer, which we count from the second day of Passover until Shavuot. Feel free to join with me. Hineni muchan umizuman lekayem mitzvat aseh shel sfirat haomer. I am ready to fulfill the mitzvah of counting the Omer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat haomer. Our praise to you, Adonai, sovereign of all, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to count the Omer. Hayom shmona asar yom shehem shnei shavuot ve'arba'a yamim la'omer. Today is 18 days, which is 2 weeks and 4 days of the Omer. Anybody know how many weeks that leaves? 7 weeks of 7 days is what we count, and then the 50th day is Shavuot. So what did I just say? 2 weeks? We had 18 days? You can do your math. Too much math for a Friday night. Addie, do you know? She's like, My children love to ask me random math questions in the car, so you always pay attention to what numbers are being called out. Roughly 5 weeks, yeah, because if we're two weeks and some days in, we've got just under 5 weeks left. Good math. So our portion starts off with, well, after Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe, after God speaking to Moses, with the words, Kedoshim tihiyu ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohechem, and Rabbi pointed out what is the key root in that. Who was paying attention? Kadosh for holiness. This portion begins what we call, or includes what we call the holiness code. And I could give a sermon or lecture on pretty much any phrase you find within the portion as it stands alone, but that's not what you're getting tonight. When I started here at Temple, I proudly hung my bachelor's degree from Columbia University on my office wall. I have proudly worn my Columbia Women's Swimming and Diving kippah that a classmate made just for me in services and in this building, and I even used a story from my Columbia days in one of my first high holiday sermons here at Temple. Columbia University shaped who I am as a rabbi and as a person, and until recently I've always been a proud alum. Over the last few weeks in particular, but really since the beginning of October, since October 7th, I've gotten asked how I feel about what is going on in Israel, what's going on in the U.S., and the like. And in particular, more recently, what's going on college campuses and what's going on at Columbia, for those especially who know that I've got a connection to that particular school. And I'll tell you, it's really difficult to see the lawn and the steps that are usually vibrant and full of life as an encampment, to see buildings that my classmates lived in, that we ate in together, that we studied in, vandalized and barricaded, and more. I can't get those images out of my head as I look at places that I spent 4 years of my life dwelling on. Last week's Torah study, we got on a tangent about the Israel-Hamas war, because Torah study on Saturday morning never goes on a tangent, right? And so for those who are on Torah study, some of these musings will sound familiar, hopefully. I was trying to remember exactly what I said. There are different statements that one could make, and I think they are not mutually exclusive. I can stand behind Israel having a right to exist and defend herself. I can stand behind the Palestinian people having a right to exist and have a state. I can stand behind the fact that I think Hamas should not have power in Gaza, that Gazans are suffering and that human suffering is bad, that Israelis have a right to live in peace, that Gazans have a right to live in peace, that terrorism is bad, that people should not live in fear, that the hostages need to be brought home. And I could probably add at least half a dozen other powerful statements to that list. And when I say I could say I could say we, I could say one. I struggled with what pronoun to use, so hear whichever of those three you want. Even the 7 that I just listed, if you asked me to put them in a priority list of what was my top priority, I'm not sure I could do it. There are some of those statements that I might feel more strongly about. There's some of those statements that you might feel more strongly about. And in Torah study, this is where I drew a little bit of an analogy to the Israeli elections. Who knows even a little bit about Israeli elections? Who knows nothing about Israeli elections? You're fine. I'm going to give you a refresher. So earlier this year through the Israel 4HQ class, we talked about, and this happened to be the week that I got to sub into class, fancy that. We talked about the election system in Israel. So unlike the U.S., where we have, by and large, throughout U.S. history, a two-party system, we have an election, one party wins. Israel is a whole lot more complicated, but to try and condense this down into like 3 sentences, there's an election, political parties get a certain number of seats in the Knesset, but you need to build a coalition with multiple parties in order to form a government. And so you would think if the party that is sort of the leader party was most closely aligned on, I don't know, we'll call it the 4 top issues, and they're pretty aligned with another party on 3 of those 4, you might think on paper, oh, hey, they'll want to be in coalition together. You'd be wrong, because it's Israel, it's never easy. And you might on paper see 2 parties that vehemently disagree on a couple of those top 4 priorities, and then wonder, well, why are they getting in coalition together? Every time Israel has elections, these conversations happen in pretty much every Jew's head. And the reason is because it depends on how strongly one party holds that point as a priority. I may feel one way on issue A, but if I don't feel so strongly about it, even if you feel the opposite way, but we agree on these other things that we really care about, we can work together. I can make some concessions to have you be part of my coalition. So even if the top priorities are a mismatch, parties can come together, and that's where you get, like, how is this ultra-Orthodox party in coalition with this very progressive party? I could go on to actually how that works and what the specific issues are. I was tempted to try and depoliticize this by, like, what toppings should go on our pizza, but then it got too long. But this idea of building a coalition and of finding that common ground. I find in the discourse around the Israel-Hamas war, we use the analogy of the American system. There's 2 sides, one will win, one will lose. If Israel wins, Hamas loses. If Hamas wins, Israel loses. No middle ground. If one were to say that they were pro-Israeli, that would get heard as, I don't care about the Gazans. And if one were to say, I'm pro-Palestinian, others might hear, I'm anti-Zionist. And I would say that's not true. It's not that black and white. So if we use more of this coalition mentality, one person might have bringing the hostages home at the top of their priority list, and some of the others of those 7 up there as well. But just because the hostages are their top priority doesn't mean they don't care about the others. Another person might hold the need for peace for the Gazans as a top priority and getting humanitarian aid into Gaza as a high priority, but it doesn't mean that they don't care about Israeli safety. Dr. Betsy Sohn, a psychologist and Jewish educator extraordinaire, who I had the pleasure of studying with at HUC, and again, most recently at the CCAR convention, made a point and she was talking about having conversations between generations, not political conversations, but it works for our purposes tonight. That if I am listening to agree, if I'm listening to argue with you or to prove that my perspective is right, we're not going to connect, we're not going to be in a productive relationship. But when I can listen to understand, with the goal of understanding, that's when we can build connections. Listening to judge or argue is an entirely different kind of listening than to understand and connect. On social media, there's usually only one of those kinds of listening. So back to our college campuses. Many of them, not all of them, there are protests on the campuses that have remained peaceful, that have remained within the realm of First Amendment rights. But there are distinctly ones that have turned violent, that have turned anti-Semitic. I would say such as Colombia for those that's where we started. And I think these are a representation of what anti-Semitism in today's world, how it's an iteration of what we've seen in the past. This week I saw an open letter that was written by Jewish students, current Jewish students, at Columbia University that's been signed on by a number of students that I don't know off the top of my head, but the list involved a lot of scrolling. One of the paragraphs they had in there, I'd be happy to share the whole letter. The reason behind it was that they said people are speaking for us, for what our experience is, but this is our voice, let us tell you what our experience is. It was a very powerful piece. I'm giving you one paragraph. In terms of what they're experiencing on campus, that's this that it begins with. This distortion illuminates the nature of anti-Semitism. In every generation, the Jewish people are blamed and scapegoated as responsible for the societal evil of the time. In Iran and in the Arab world, we were ethnically cleansed for our presumed ties to the Zionist entity. In Russia, we endured state-sponsored violence and were ultimately massacred for being capitalists. In Europe, we were the victims of genocide because we were communists and not European enough. And today we face the accusation of being too European, painted as society's worst evils, colonizers, and oppressors. We are targeted for our belief that Israel, our ancestral and religious homeland, has a right to exist. We are targeted by those who misuse the word Zionist as a sanitized slur for Jew, synonymous with racist, oppressive, or genocidal. We know all too well that anti-Semitism is shape-shifting. And to be clear, that doesn't go for everybody who is supporting Palestine, but this is what the students on Columbia's campus are experiencing. And what I think they are expressing reflects anger and hatred at the situation in the U.S. and the world, not just Israel, the idea of scapegoating, that Jews being the cause of societal ills is played out yet again. And so I bring us back to our portion, Kedoshim Tihiyu, you should be holy, or you shall be holy. To be holy right now is to see the divinity in everybody. My brother wrote a book that got banned, so in the realm of banned books, he did it. This was years ago. It was initially entitled, I Love Brock Turner. Anybody remember Brock Turner? He was a college student found guilty of 3 felony sexual assaults and, in public estimation, received far too light a punishment for those felony convictions. And my brother's argument, which I really didn't fully appreciate at the time, was that he could despise Brock's actions. He could disagree with the court's punishment. He could find heinous the crimes, the sexual assaults that Brock engaged in, and he could still love him. And this is where our portion that the selection of our portion that Rabbi read, conveniently, I had a feeling she might do this, ended with Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, that you should love your fellow as yourself. My brother, not Jewish, didn't use the language of love your neighbor as yourself or of being created b'tselem Elohim, but I think there was that undertone. We need to be holy not just with ourselves, not just with those we're closest to, not just with those we agree with, but to be holy, to be Kedoshim in our actions, even with those we disagree with, even those who have done horrendous things, to love them and still see them as a human being created in God's image is what I hear us being commanded in this portion. I wonder what it would look like if we could engage in discourse around Israel and around other sensitive subjects of our time with this idea of the image of the divine in all involved, holding that front and center, something you certainly don't find in U.S. media. Kedoshim Tihiyu, to be holy, I must see the other as holy. I hope that may you be blessed with holiness. May you be able to see the holiness in each other. And that's my thought, I'd say, for this Shabbat, but it's building on thoughts from last Shabbat, so it's my thoughts for the last week. And I will invite us to rise as we turn in our prayer book to page 256 to return the Torah to the Ark. Eitz Chaim hi lamachazikim ba v'tomcheha me'ushar deracheha darchei noam v'chol nativoteha Shalom, Ashivenu Adonai Elecha, V'nashuva, Chadesh Yamenu Kekedem, Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. We continue with Aleinu, which can be found in the middle of page 282. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latekidu la leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, Velo samanu kemishpechot hadama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, livnei melech mochei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. 287. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yiyeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Page 289. The light of life is a finite flame. Like the Shabbat candles, life is kindled. It burns, it glows. It is radiant with warmth and beauty. But soon it fades, its substance is consumed, and it is no more. In light we see, in light we are seen. The flames dance, and our life burns down in gutters. There is an end to the flames. We see no more and are no more seen. Yet we do not despair, for we are more than a memory slowly fading into the darkness. With our lives, we give life. Something of us can never die. We move in the eternal cycle of darkness and death to light and life. As a congregation this Shabbat, we are in a period of aninut for David Sapphire, and a period of shloshim for Rabbi Press, Nadezha Gopher, Florence Silberg-Sobel, and Brad Schenk. We add to their names those who died at this season in years past, with the yahrzeits of Jack N. Brusk, Bertha Asher, Eva T. Sherman, Dr. Morton Block, Isaac Pollock, Edna Mowell, Harry Must, Fanny Fink, Mortimer Lanzit, J. Henry Liebensberger, Saul Green, Seymour Stamen, Edith Torf, Sam Goldflees, Aaron Blau, Gerald Albert, Edward Faust, Julius Roman, Rezi Roman, Maurice M. Linder, Minnie Holtz, Henry Bader, Aaron Roth Klein, Simon S. Roth, Samuel Peel, Thelma Sokol, Esther Sacher, Bennett A. Laderman, Dr. Milton S. Ross, Nanette Solomon, Joseph O. Weinrich, Sherry Berger, Charles William Weprin, Felix Jacobs, Olive Margolis Frankel, David Office, Deborah Seidel, Florence Kahn Heyman, Corinne Rich, Laverne D. Zimmerman, Dr. Philip D. Mayman, Jerome A. Goldswig, David Singer, and Vern R. Cox. If there are other names that ought to be added or pronounced more correctly, I invite you to add them. I ask those in mourning or remembering to rise first. We join them standing as one community in strength and support with the hallowed words of Mourner's Kaddish, page 294. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabba, v'alma divrach hirutei v'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'v'yomechon, uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabba mivarach, le'alam u'lamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal, shemei dekudesha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom v'imrumav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May their memories always and only be for a blessing. And we will conclude this evening on page 324. Now, we're going to go with 322 with Ein Keloheinu. Unless there's a Yigdal melody you really had in mind. 322. You may be seated if you wish. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Gadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Micheloheinu, Michadonenu, Michemalkeinu, Michemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Emalkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. Shabbat Shalom. I hope you will join us in the hall for Kiddush and Motzi and a little Oneg Shabbat. Thank you for being with us.